Today I'm doing something brand new for this channel, my first flight review. We're flying Japan Airlines Economy from Dallas Fort Worth to Tokyo Haneda. Now, this wasn't even supposed to be our original plan. We were scheduled to be on American Airlines in Premium Economy, but that entire flight got canceled. So instead, we were rescheduled and snagged the last three economy seats together on Japan Airlines' brand new A350-1000. And we're taking this flight to catch a cruise out of Yokohama near Tokyo. In this video, I'm going to show you what the boarding and service were like, how comfortable the seats were, and what you get in terms of entertainment and amenities, and of course, how the food stacks up. You're going to want to stick around to the end where I'm going to share my top 3 must-pack items for a long-haul flight like this, and one thing you can probably skip if you're doing this exact flight. So you'll have to let me know at the end of this video if you like seeing flight reviews or if you prefer when I stick to cruise content. I'd love to know your honest feedback. We're going to start today by talking a little bit about the boarding process. Boarding at Dallas Fort Worth Terminal D was super smooth. It was really organized. The gate staff kept things moving. In fact, they lined everybody up before the flight by your boarding number, which made things super easy, and there was just no chaos at all. They had so many different gate agents helping out. It was just really clean and easy. Once we were actually on the flight attendants were so welcoming and professional. They were helping passengers out with getting their bags overhead, getting people seated, and even offering to take photos. And this was a good thing because the flight at this point was starting to run a little behind, but somehow they managed to get everyone on in a timely fashion. Honestly, this whole boarding experience was one of the fastest and easiest and most pleasant experiences I have ever had on flight. Let's talk a lot about seats and comfort because I know this is a big one. So we were in row 53, which is about halfway through the economy cabin. Now the seats had adjustable headrests with side flaps and a pretty decent recline. It's about a 5-inch recline according to the website. The legroom was fine until the person in front of you reclined, which got a little bit tight around hour 3 or 4, especially for my 6-foot husband. I felt really bad for him because he was in the middle seat. Now, each seat had USB and USB-C ports. They also had an AC outlet, a very handy cup holder, that was rare and so cool, and a tray table, but there is no device holder. So you're definitely going to want to bring like a phone stand or something similar if you like to use your own device, but I just set mine up on the tray table and it worked out great. The AC outlet was in kind of a funky location. It was right beneath the tray table, and there was a headphone jack down there beneath the TV as well. You have to kind of look for it, but you'll find everything. They also provided wired headphones that were relatively comfortable in case you didn't bring your own Bluetooth or wired headphones for the flight. They're pretty soft and pretty cozy. I used them the whole time. Let's move on to the amenities and the storage. So when you got to your seat, everybody had a blanket, a pillow, and headphones. And the blanket we never really ended up using, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. Pillow was very nice. It was kind of a longer lumbar pillow. It was a little more long and plush than the ones I'm used to seeing. The overhead bins were great. They had plenty of space, and my large backpack even fit under the seat in front of me. They were also really lenient about taking bags on at DFW, which was great. We were able to take our full-size 20-inch carry-ons and a personal item, and they gave us no trouble at all. But the seating overall, I would say it was nothing crazy fancy, but it was everything you need for a long flight in terms of amenities, especially in coach. It's about what you would expect. Let's talk about the in-flight entertainment. You guys, every seat on this aircraft had a 13-inch 4K screen with a really big selection of entertainment. They had movies, they had TV shows, music, live television. They had lots of Japanese comedy and even an in-flight exercise routine. So what do we actually watch? Well, I watched Goonies, which is kind of funny. And my husband actually got through 3 Japanese movies, which he said were excellent. He was talking about them for a couple of days afterwards. So don't skip out on the Japanese entertainment. They have great subtitle choices. Now, the coolest feature, if you ask me, on these crazy big entertainment screens, you guys, these things are really nice. Coolest feature was the aircraft camera. Now you can switch between the map view, there's even a cockpit view, or even a chase cam of the plane in flight. This was especially cool during takeoff and landing. During landing, we actually saw the flight land from the perspective of the wheel that they put down, which was awesome. It's really neat, and I do highly recommend that you play around with it right when you get on the flight and turn it back on just to kind of see where you are. It's such a beautiful view. There's also this really cool feature on the screen. It's like a little timeline that shows when your meals are going to be served and when the cabin lights will dim. This is so clever because you're going to know exactly when to expect service without guessing. You can kind of plan your naps around this if you're the kind of person who can sleep on a plane. By the way, can you sleep on a plane? I cannot sleep on a plane. It's horrible. You could also peruse the food and beverage selections on the screen. We didn't have a choice really of meals. Like you couldn't order from the screen, but they would say, okay, here's choice one and choice two. And they showed all the beverages, which was really nice. The screen also had this little feature where you could look at the cabin layout in case you wanted to see maybe where your seat was, or maybe you needed access to an accessible restroom or a baby changing table. All of that was on this little map. Now, there is a feature on the entertainment screens. It's like a Bluetooth connect where you're supposed to be able to connect your Bluetooth device to the screen, but we couldn't get it to work and we kind of gave up because it just kind of sat there buffering and didn't work. So I'm curious to know, we were talking about that plane camera before where you can see the outside of the plane, you can see what it looks like from the top. Would you use this or would you just stick with the window view? I'm curious to know if you think that's a neat new feature. Let's talk about food and beverage. I know this is a big one for everybody. Let's start with the first service. About 30 minutes into the flight, like really soon after takeoff, we got a snack and a full drink service. They gave us this little packet of delicious like trail mix. It was super good. Actually, it wasn't trail mix. It was like snack mix. Think of like a Chex mix or something. And it was delicious. And then at the 90-minute mark, the first full meal came out. You had your choice of Japanese chicken meatballs with rice, or what they call the international option, which was like a small pasta, like an orzo dish with shrimp and mushrooms. And they both came with sides. So you were going to be getting miso soup and a few other sides, like they had like a barley salad, and they had a spaghetti, and they had a potato salad. And you got real silverware. There was no bamboo, there was no plastic. I mean, this is beautiful, real silverware to eat with, or you could use the provided chopsticks. I thought one of the highlights was the little Haagen-Dazs ice cream that came out right after, followed by some green tea and coffee. So that was meal number one, about 90 minutes in. Later in the flight, probably 5 hours later or so, after everybody kind of did that major first sleep, they handed out little chocolate croissants. And then 2 hours before landing, we had breakfast. I thought this meal was great. They served a frittata. I think they said it was like leek and ham frittata. And that was served with some veggies, some fruit, and a small cheesecake like dessert. I thought that the meals were tasty overall, although they were really heavy on carbohydrates. I mean, that first meal was like rice or pasta with spaghetti, potato salad, and a barley salad. I would have loved to have seen a little green salad or fruit or some more protein. Next time, in fact, I might even order a low carb option to see if I can get more protein on the flight because I think it just makes you really sleepy. So, what do you guys think about that? Do you like it when things are really high carb on a flight so you can kind of pass out, or do you pre order your meal? Speaking of meal service, there is one little detail that I wanted to share with you. If you were asleep for the meal service, they put a little pink sticker on the tray table right in front of you, and that would offer you the opportunity to select a meal at a later time when you woke up. And it was really nice because I actually saw the flight attendants following up on this and walking by when the person woke up and saying, "Would you like a meal?" It was so nice. So, you guys heard the entree choices, right? You had the Japanese chicken meatballs or the international pasta. Which one are you picking? Let's talk about restrooms. I don't usually talk about restrooms that much on cruise ships or anywhere I travel, but Japan Airlines deserves credit for this one. They were spotless and they were stocked with seat covers. How nice is that? Seat covers on an airplane, hand towels, hand sanitizer. You even had like fancy pump soap, and it was easily the nicest economy restroom I have ever used. So let's talk about the overall experience on the flight. I have to say, this 13-hour flight went by pretty fast. The deplaning was smooth, everything went wonderfully. And the luggage came out before we could even get through customs, immigration, and a restroom stop, which was super impressive. So let's talk about the pros and cons. Pros of this flight, in my opinion: the friendly professional service, The staff were elegant, friendly, professional, wonderful, just above and beyond, and they kept it together for that full 13-hour flight. The cabin was clean and elegant. I really liked the design. I thought it was gorgeous, and I loved the entertainment system. Those 4K 13-inch screens were really nice and helped you to not get bored. I also really appreciated the generous luggage allowance. I'm sure that this varies by airport, but it really made a difference for us. Some of the cons for this flight, I felt like the cabin ran a little bit warm. Normally, I'd be bundled in a blanket and wearing my sweater. I didn't touch either of those items the entire time. Maybe it's just me. Also, I'm not a huge fan of the Japan Airlines website or app. I didn't find it was user friendly. I couldn't find my boarding pass, had to email my boarding pass to myself. No big deal, but just after being accustomed to flying American, I found it a little bit confusing. And then one thing that I thought was kind of weird, and maybe somebody out there, maybe you know the answer to this, but the entire bulkhead section of the economy class stayed empty through the whole entire flight. In fact, they had reserved seats on these reserved signs, I should say, on the seats, which I thought was really strange because I'm sure that there was a tall traveler on that flight who would have loved to have that front row, but it just remained empty. Maybe they're saving it for people with children. I'm wondering if anybody knows the answer to that. Definitely drop me a comment if you do. So, was Japan Airlines Economy a letdown or a pleasant surprise? I gotta say, it was definitely a pleasant surprise. The service felt elevated, the flight was comfortable, and the food was way better than I expected. Now, there's three things I would recommend that you pack for this flight. I would take a long charging cable to make sure that you can get to that actual cable location. That'd probably be smart. I would definitely take some chapstick in case your lips tend to get dry in the air. I think that we all kind of got a little chapped on our flight, and that's one thing you might want to take. And I would also recommend you bring some protein-based snacks with you, maybe some jerky, maybe some protein trail mix, whatever you can find. One thing you can absolutely leave at home, it would be a bulky layer. You don't really need your warm winter coat. If you're flying summer or spring, I would say on this aircraft, you might end up getting hot. Again, that might just be my personal opinion. So, what is the longest flight that you have ever been on, and how did you pass the time? I want to thank everyone so much for joining me on this first flight review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, check out our Japan playlist for more travel and cruise content. Be sure to subscribe and give us a like. Those thumbs ups really, really matter. And until next time, we'll see you in the friendly skies.